But on the Gold Coast this weekend with the Pirtek Australian Legends, Ford fans have a chance to get one back of their own. We're going to reenact the 1977 finish of the race with Alan Moffat, Colin Bond and the original XC Falcons that broke the hearts of every Holden fan.
I'll keep your eyes on the road, your hand upon the wheel.
A scene we've never seen before, side by side.
It's an event that most people remember, you know. It's like a lot of things in Australia, you know, whether it be the America's Cup win and the 77 goes right along with all that.
Could you sympathise just a little bit with Jamie Whincup 2 weeks ago?
Well, I guess the difference there was that they were very close. When we did it that particular year, I think we were a lap or two ahead of the next car.
But the Moffat Fords aren't the only muscle cars here this weekend. There's an array of iconic cars and legendary drivers to help us celebrate 50 years in Australian touring car racing.
Through the top part of the section, acknowledging the cheers.
James, you're representing a legend this weekend. I've got to ask you, though, can you imagine how we drove this thing?
Mate, to be honest, it's actually pretty good to drive. The only thing I would change would be power steering. They were real men back those days, mate. Not for me. I like power steering.
It's been a couple of years since we lost Peter, but it's amazing how the memory just keeps on living on, particularly through these cars.
That's why I obviously love coming up and being able to do this and represent the family and, you know, sort of keep the name out there. And mate, for me personally, it's just an amazing experience, obviously, to drive, you know, these wonderful vehicles. And honestly, just hang around with the old guys and listen to a few of the stories. And as the stories get bigger and better every year, so it's great fun.
What stands out for the A9X that you really love?
It's just a great package. I mean, and me personally, it's my favourite vehicle. Like, bar none, that is the best.
163 laps, Peter Brock, winner of the great race. This is the kind of send-off, and I don't want to...
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Jimmy, you've only driven this car a handful of times since 1992. Does it feel the same?
It feels exactly the same as it did in those years. I mean, it's amazing, really. You wouldn't think it would, but still get a sore thumb from the four-wheel drive pressure on the steering wheel. Still has a slight vibration in the steering from the power steer, but it's exactly like it was.
People at the time chased this car out of the sport, and now they say they love it.
Half the people here on the weekend will never have seen it race or on the track, so, you know, that's great.
Bathurst 1992. Still, people remind you about that, don't they? That'll never end.
No, they still do, and it was a good part of motorsport history and the things that I said, but the thing is that we won the race, so I didn't really care.
Whoa! Not much between them. There was almost a touch.
The competition between us, Jimmy, myself and Dick, it's there. It's still there, don't you worry.
What about this car? I mean, it's one that people just love. People who haven't even maybe seen it race in its heyday.
It was not as a successful car as I would have wished it would have been, but it won some good races and it led some good races. It led many races, but unfortunately it didn't fulfil the obligations that I wanted with it.
Oh, he's gone. Kevin Bartlett's throw is over. Bartlett has gone. He's got Dick Johnson made into it. No, Dick got out of the way.
Dick, driving Tru-Blu's got to put a smile on your face every day of the week.
Well, having a car that was that achieved so much in a short period of time, mate, it's certainly different to drive to what the later model cars are, that's for sure. It is so heavy on the steering, I must have been either stupid or very strong at that point in time. Still goes pretty good.
It's got a special place in your heart, really, doesn't it?
It certainly does. I think for the simple reason it's the car that we won our first touring car championship in, with that epic race at Lakeside with Brocky. And certainly to come back in the same year and win Bathurst after the support we got from the Australian public, and that was just fantastic.
What a great story. It is great to have the legends with us this weekend. They've been enjoying the atmosphere, enjoying the racing, and now is their turn to shine and relive the glory days. So we're going to wind back the clock, and we know that Mark Larkham likes to talk about the good old days. So, Larko, you can take us through this. The legends are on track, and you're alongside Aaron Noonan.
Thanks, Matty, mate. Yeah, I do love this. I really should be down scanning the pit lane on the V8 thing, but I've got up here, mate. I jumped up into it. I love this stuff. I really, really do.
Now, Dick Johnson is behind the wheel of Tru-Blu. And this is the car, this is the starting grid, and this is like the dream grid of Australian touring car racing. Look at the names, look at the cars. Tony Longhurst in one of his old Ford Sierra RS500s. Bobby Morris is behind the wheel of Norm Beachy's Monaro. KB's in the Camaro. James Brock in the 78 Bathurst winning A9X Tirana. And for the more modern fans, Glenn Seaton in the Ford Credit Falcon. Jimmy Richards in the Nissan. John French is out there. It's fantastic.
A lot of championships, a lot of history. I was trying to put a number on, you know, the value of what's out there on the grid now, but you can't even do it, Noons. It's these are iconic cars that will always sit within the history of motorsport in this country.
And it was very much a last-minute thing last year, but The guys at Pirtek, Steve Dutton and Glenn Duncan, got back behind it this year to bring the Australian legends back as a part of the Gold Coast 600. I've always wanted to do this, and I get to do it today. Let's go on board the Tru-Blu Falcon and have a chat with Dickie himself. DJ, it's Aaron Noonan. Have you got me there?
Sure I have, Noons. Can you hear me?
I've got you, buddy. I've got you. I've always wanted to do this. Is it like a dog on lino, or is it all right?
Mate, let me tell you, nothing's changed in 30 years, pal. The seat, I tell you what, the seat's as hot as hell. The gear shift's like a spoon in a bowl of custard. but other than that, it's a fabulous, fabulous car.
Come on, hey, Dickie, it's Larko here. Come on, mate, you haven't learned of us. I can see that you are as busy as hell.
mate, let me tell you, either I tell you what, I must have been really good back then, or a damn sight stronger, because Christ, this is heavy on the steering.
You were telling me the other day that this thing's got a bit more power than 81.
Yeah, it's got a bit more grunt than 81 because Steve Amos from work did the engine, and it's an absolute gem, I tell you. It really pulls, and it's just so nice to drive.
So, Dick, you'd have to agree with me, when you drive that thing around there, the blokes that are in the modern era in the cars with all the bells and whistles and buttons, they're overpaid, aren't they?
Yeah, well, they sure are, mate. As I said, I can't believe either I was stupid or must have been half a ride or something.
DJ, thanks a lot. Great to have you as a part of the Pirtek Australian Legends. Jim Richards behind the wheel of the 92 Bathurst winning Nissan GTR. Tony Longhurst in the B&H Sierra there. Group A cars, the turbocharged cars that really did evoke a lot of emotion around that time before, of course, V8 supercars came to be.
But great to see Tony Longhurst along too, because I mean those Sierras back then, I had a drive for one of those. They are a very, very difficult car to drive. High centre of gravity, a lot of power, small tyres, and Tony's driving style really lent itself well. He performed very, very well in that car.
And that car is actually the last of his team's cars from before he switched back to BMW. Car that's close to my heart, the A9X Tirana, the 78 Bathurst winning car. The 78 and 79 cars were separate cars for Peter Brock and Jim Richards, but James Brock behind the wheel, and anytime you see this sort of car, four-wheel disc brakes, 400 horsepower, it was the car that really fixed up all the dramas that they had with the L34.
Yeah, go on about it, Noon. It's a Holden, mate. You know I'm a Ford bloke. Can we get onto a Ford? Yeah, look at that. There's Cito's championship winning car, another iconic car. In fact, when you look at that Falcon, that is the year where, you know, to me, the cars really changed. You know, that's where the engines developed. There was engine management systems got very developed, highly developed, bigger brakes, all of that stuff. And that really is probably I guess, the forefront of the cars we have today.
And that's the 1997 championship winning car. The
EL Falcon.
Yeah, that's right. The 96 Bathurst pole-sitting car, in fact, with a lot of history. But you go back here, Brian Thompson's Camaro with Charlie O'Brien behind the wheel. Bobby Morris, the 76 Bathurst winner in Norm Beach's 1970.
That is a beautiful car.
The 350 Monaro was the first Holden, the first Aussie-built car to win the championship. And Norm's the only man to have won the championship in a Ford and a Holden. And that's what Jamie Winkup's trying to do this year.
Yeah, actually, these guys, I know they're not going around here at full tilt, but I'll tell you what, the brakes on these cars just weren't designed to be pulled up on the Gold Coast around a street circuit with cement walls everywhere. So, gee whiz, you'd want to be careful.
And, of course, we mentioned how much these cars are worth. You couldn't put a number on them. And, of course, the Bowden family, who have restored and cultivated and kept so many of these cars, they've provided many of them for the Pirtek Australian Legends. This is Alan Moffat's 1973 championship winning Phase 3 GTHO.
Come on, Noons, I know you like that, but does it get any better than that? No. Does it get any better? And we owe a lot to the Bowden family. They do a fantastic, because not only do they restore these cars back to their originality, they share them with the people, and that's the great thing about it.
And Johnny French is behind the wheel as well, who was, of course, so involved in the Ford project. But this is what we have really wanted to see. The #1 car with Alan Moffat behind the wheel. And we've got to say thank you, too, to the Bathurst Regional Council for getting that car here. Let's go on board with Alan Moffat. It's Aaron Noonan. Have you got me, Alan?
I can hear you just.
Hey, 33 years ago, this car wasn't in too good a health.
It wasn't bad, it just didn't have any brakes. Otherwise, it was breathing fine.
It's a bit different with all this concrete around, though.
I'm sorry, it is hard to hear you, mate.
How about all of this concrete? It's a little bit different to the mountain down the bottom.
Well, the rock faces at Bathurst were always intimidating, but we didn't have them all the way around the circuit. This is like driving in a tunnel of love, but fortunately, I've got a teammate that's guiding me, and we're just coming up towards the bottom of the circuit to finish off our lap of of remembrance, I guess.
Now, Moff, it's Larko, mate. How are you? Moff, we love Bondi, love you, and I got to say, the 1-2 finish back then, a lot of conjecture about should it have been around the other way, mate. I reckon the effort that goes into not just driving the car, but pulling that team together, you should take it, mate.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that.
So a moment in history is being reenacted. 33 years ago, it was car 1 taking the checkered flag in front of car number 2. Today, though, down the outside, car number 2 has its nose in front, so Colin Bond gets the win that he didn't get in 77.
History rewritten. Moff, I wouldn't have done that.
Oh, it's the one that Ford fans absolutely love.
Yeah, there was not a sweeter moment in Australian motorsport.
Fantastic to see these cars a part of the Armour All Gold Coast 600, winding back the clock. There's still a big day in store here